Today we want to be every single Pokemon champion, and there is a lot of them now, as the Team Magma leader Maxie. Maxie wants to increase the land and has a Groudon to help him do that, but he's turning over a new leaf and focusing on becoming a champion in every region. If he does manage to beat them all, there's 3 powerful trainers he must face to claim victory. If a Pokemon faints, it's gone from the whole run, and a few more rules added on for more difficulty. Can Maxie beat every single Pokemon champion? First up is Pokemon Fire Red, and we have the champion for this game, Blue. This is our team consisting of a Groudon and a Camerupt, which we can Mega Evolve later on. His moveset on his Pokemon are really good too, and I'll try to keep it as accurate as possible when possible. Now he only has 5 Pokemon, so we're going to be taking on some of his manga Pokemon too, like Houndoom, which I'm really happy about. Let's take on the first champion. Blue's lead is his Pidgeot, and we lead off with our Camerupt, who's going to be our lead for this run. Turn 1 Pidgeot Feather Dances us to reduce our attack stat, as our Rock Slide just negates that by critical hitting him to instantly take him down. Well, that's a good start. Out comes Rhydon as Blue's second choice, and we swap to Crobat to negate the Earthquake. Then we hit a Sludge Bomb for basically nothing, as a Rock Tomb does big damage and lowers our speed. I now swap again into Weezing as we tank the Rock Tomb a little bit better, but we really can't hurt Rhydon with our moveset. A Shadow Ball does okay damage with another critical hit, but he's just using Scary Face lowering our speed. We swap again now into Houndoom as he goes for a takedown, doing over half to us and taking recoil too. We then hit a Crunch to take down Rhydon. Third is his Ace Blastoise, and it's a really quick swap into Mightyena on the Hydro Pump that we thankfully dodge. We then Crunch for a little damage as he sets up the Rain with Rain Dance. Now we go into our Groudon for the first time to remove the Rain with Drought as he misses another attack. We then hit a Solar Beam to instantly take down Blastoise. This brings out Executor, but in the Sun plus Flamethrower means he stands no chance and the Eggplant falls. This brings out Alakazam, and it's walled by Dark types, so I go back into Houndoom as he sets up a Reflect. We then just hit a Crunch to take him down with 1 Dark type attack, leaving his final Pokemon Arcanine. We swap to Camerupt on the extreme speed, which still does a quarter to us. We then take a Drought boosted Flamethrower for good damage too, as our Earthquake brings him to below half. We tank 1 more Flamethrower, just about hanging on in the red, as a final Earthquake takes down Arcanine, and with that we defeat Blue and our first champion of this challenge. We move on to Johto, where the second champion awaits. Lance is a champion of Johto in the next we face. He's a flying type, dragon type champion. We have a severe lack of ice type coverage with our mainly fire team, and Lance could be a problem. I really don't know how we will deal with him. Lance's lead is Gyarados, and that's a really bad matchup for our Camerupt and well, most of our team. We need to swap on the Waterfall into Weezing, who tanks it okay. We then reply with a Thunderbolt to take down Gyarados swiftly. Then is his level 49 Dragonite, who we hit with a Sludge Bomb for good damage as we get paralyzed from Thunder Wave. Dragonite then goes for a Dragon Rush as we barely hang on, and Sludge Bomb again to put him in the red. Lance will full restore now, healing Dragonite as we go for Pain Split to heal ourselves and bring him back to half. He Dragon Rushes again, and now we get flinched. We've got to switch, so I go into Mightyena to get off the Intimidate as he connects a Dragon Rush, still hurting us. We then Ice Fang to take down the first of his 3 Dragonites. This then brings out his level 50 Dragonite, and I don't have a good swap for this thing. I go into Groudon, probably our bulkiest Pokemon, and set up the Sun as an Outrage still does nearly half to us. I then misclick an Earthquake as an Outrage brings us super low again. Now I swap into Crobat on the Outrage, and Dragonite does half as he gets confused. We Sludge Bomb him for good damage, and we get the poison as he thankfully hits himself in confusion. He then heals himself with his Citrus Berry too. We Sludge Bomb again, and Dragonite lives on 1 HP, snaps out of his confusion, hits an Outrage, but Crobat also survives the attack on 1 HP, meaning Dragonite then falls to poison damage, and that was insanely close. Next he sends out Aerodactyl, and I go into Camerupt as he misses a Rock Slide. Aerodactyl then connects a Rock Slide for massive damage thanks to a critical hit as we take down the prehistoric bird with a Stone Edge. This brings out his last Dragonite. I'm really running out of options, my team is just getting decimated. I go into Houndoom as he blizzards and we tank it decently. Houndoom then goes for a Dark Pulse, bringing him to exactly half as he misses a Dragon Rush. We then go for a Sun boosted Flamethrower, bringing him to the red, but we snag the burn, so his Dragon Rush does less damage as we tank it, and Dragonite falls to burn damage. His final Pokemon is Charizard. Houndoom Dark Pulses him to under half. We then live a Dragon Claw on 1 HP yet again. This means a final Dark Pulse and we take down Charizard, beating Lance. Already we are clawing our way through, surviving on 1 HP multiple times. This is going to be an extremely tough run, I can already feel it. In Pokemon Omega Ruby, Steven is a champion. He has mainly Rock and Steel types, which we match up quite nicely versus, and we have a Mega Camerupt, but he's also got a Mega Metagross. Let's see what damage we can do. Steven's lead is Skarmory, and we lead off with Camerupt. We take advantage of the type matchup by immediately Mega Evolving our Camerupt into the glorious Mega, as our Flamethrower then brings Skarmory down to his Sturdy as he sets up a layer of spikes. Steven then decides to burn a full restore here as our Flamethrower just brings him all the way back down to 1 HP and his Sturdy again. Skarmory then hits a very weak Aerial Ace and we take him down with a Flash Cannon. Second out, he decides to send out Aggron. We stay in an Earthquake, once again bringing him down to his Sturdy as he hits an Earthquake that Mega Camerupt tanks pretty nicely considering. The next turn we then take down Aggron with a Flamethrower. Third out is Claydol, and I can't risk Camerupt so early on, we've got to switch. I go into Crobat on the Earth Power which does nothing. Crobat then poisons Claydol with a Toxic as he sets up a Reflect boosting the team's defense. I then Dark Pulse for great damage as Claydol then sets up a Light Screen boosting the special defense of his team. We hit another Dark Pulse bringing him to a Slither as he flinches too, then he dies to poison damage. Steven's fourth choice is a Cradily. Crobat hits a Dark Pulse for basically nothing, but we do flinch him. We then Sludge Bomb for not much more and we poison him as he then goes for a Confuse Ray on Crobat which isn't ideal. Now all the screens are down. I swap out Crobat now into Camerupt as he Ancient Powers and we barely hang on with 9 HP. That was a super bad play on my behalf. But all the screens are down now and Toxic is starting to rack up. We then hit a critical hit Flash Cannon to put down the stat boosted Grass and Rock type. This brings out our Moldo, another fossil Pokemon. We swap into Weezing as he goes for a Crush Claw, doing a little bit of damage but lowering our defense too. We throw Sludge at him for a quarter and we snag another poison as our Moldo keeps Crush Clawing. Deciding to swap, I go into Groudon who takes spike damage but sets up the Sun as our Moldo's Crush Claw doesn't do much but lowers our defense again. He's at half after poison damage and Groudon hits a Sun boosted Flamethrower to burn the Ancient Bug and take him down. This leaves his final Pokemon and Ace Metagross. Steven Mega Evolves him into Mega Metagross, but Groudon is faster and a Sun boosted Flamethrower is more than enough to take down his Ace Pokemon, beating Steven, but there's still one more champion in Hoenn left to face. Our second champion for Generation 3 is Wallace. He's a Water type specialist with some powerful Pokemon. We're mainly Fire type, so I'm going to be honest, we're going to abuse Permanent Sun and Solar Beam spam with Groudon here, but can we take down all of his Pokemon? Let's find out. Wallace leads with a massive Wailord and turn 1 we just can't deal with it, so we swap into Groudon to set up the Sun instantly as we still take a massive Water Spout doing incredible damage to our legendary. Not a great start, but we then hit a Solar Beam, instantly taking down the Whale in just one attack. This brings out Tentacruel, and thankfully we have access to Earthquake as a move option, and that does enough damage to take him down in one move too. Third is Whiscash, who's 4 times weak to grass, so as you can imagine a Solar Beam is more than enough to take down the Catfish. Fourth he sends out Milotic. We just Solar Beam again, bringing him low as he hits an Ice Beam, bringing Groudon to only 6 HP. We Solar Beam once more to take down Milotic, but now Groudon is very weak and we've got a Ludicolo stood in front of us. I swap into Weezing on the Surf, that doesn't do too much thanks to the Sun being up. We then Sludge Bomb for a nearly one-hit knockout as he sets up a double team. Honestly, I'm going to fast forward this bit. We keep going for Sludge Bombs and Wallace just keeps burning full restore after full restore after full restore. Weezing does take a critical hit Surf at one point, but it's a losing battle for Ludicolo and Weezing eventually takes him down with a Sludge Bomb. This brings out his last Pokemon, Gyarados. It's 4 times weak to Electric and we've got Thunderbolt, so a single Thunderbolt deals with his last Pokemon, and with that knockout we defeat Generation 3. So far no deaths and so good. On to Generation 4. Cynthia is the champion of the Sinnoh region. Her team is a powerful one. With the way this challenge is going so far, I'm not convinced of an easy time. We really need to swap correctly to continue deathless so early. Cynthia's lead is Spiritomb, and well, we lead with Camerupt as always. An Earthquake does great damage, but Spiritomb goes for a Dark Pulse doing great damage back. Cynthia now burns a full restore on Spiritomb as we just Earthquake her back down. I now go for a Stone Edge and luckily she doubles out into Togekiss nonetheless. So a great random prediction hit from me as we do fantastic damage to the Flying type. I then don't want to risk a Water Pulse destroying us, so we swap to Crobat who tanks it well. We then Sludge Bomb for the knockout. This brings back out Spiritomb, who instantly dies to a Sludge Bomb from Crobat too. Then is Milotic. We poison her instantly as she sets up an Aqua Ring for passive recovery. I go for a Dark Pulse for a little chip damage as a Mirror Coat really hurts Crobat. I swap into Weezing on the Ice Beam and we tank it decently. I then misclick Pain Split, that was a dumb thing to do, but toxic damage is racking up and a final Thunderbolt from Weezing takes her down. This brings out Lucario to go for the Psychic attack and gives us a free switch to Houndoom who's immune immune to it. Houndoom then instantly nukes Lucario with a flamethrower, and again, so far so good. But now is their biggest threat, Garchomp. We swap to Weezing on the Earthquake to take no damage. Then we go for a swap into Groudon as he Dragon Rushes for a little bit of damage too. I go for a Solar Beam for about a quarter as an Earthquake is really hurting us. We Solar Beam once more, bringing him down to his Berry Rage, healing him as we barely survive another Earthquake. I then stay in a Solar Beam again, just missing out on the knockout as he luckily dodges a Dragon Rush. Cynthia now full restores up Garchomp and we just Flamethrower, but we don't get a burn. I now can't stay in, so I go into Mightyena for the Intimidate and an Earthquake brings us to just above half. Garchomp then Brick Breaks us, putting us extremely low as our Ice Fang brings him to a Slither 2. So once again, we got a swap. I go into Crobat who tanks a Dragon Rush. We then outspeed Garchomp and bring him down with a Sludge Bomb. Cynthia's final Pokemon is a Roserade. It's a very easy swap to our full HP Houndoom who tanks a Sludge Bomb, then finishes off Roserade with a sun boosted Flamethrower, beating Cynthia and Sinnoh, and this lets us move on to Univert where 2 champions await. First up in Gen 5 is Alder, and he's got some solid Pokemon with a big weakness to fire with a few bugs on his team. Let's start the first champion of Univert. Alder's leader Viselgor is a good matchup for our Camerupt as he decides to go for a Focus Blast doing close to half, but a single Flamethrower burns the bug to a crisp. This brings out Bufalon, and we swap to Weezing on the Earthquake. We then Sludge Bomb for fantastic damage as a Head Charge just does massive damage back to us. We then swap to Groudon on the next Head Charge, and it's still doing half even to a Legendary, but Flamethrower takes him down. Alder then sends out Vanillix, and yep, we just melt the ice cream with a Flamethrower. I don't know why he did that. He then sends out a Scavalier, who's also 4 times weak to fire, and just dies to a single Flamethrower. Okay then Alder, but now is a threat. It's a Volcarona, who we've just gave permanent Sun to. I swap to Houndoom as he goes for an Overheat, and Flash Fire means we negate it and boost our Fire type moves. I then swap to Crobat, but he starts to Quiver Dance, raising his stats. This is not good. I go back into Houndoom as he does in fact Quiver Dance again, and we are now in big trouble. I swap to Crobat as he Bug Buzzes us for a quarter. He then Hyper Beams, instantly killing Crobat, and I've just made a mess. I swap instantly to Camerupt as he's recharging that turn, and we can take out the Firebug with a single Stone Edge. This brings out his last Pokemon, Druddigon. I go into Mightyena to get off an Intimidate as he outrages us to put us above half. We then swap into Houndoom as he outrages again, and we barely hang on, but now he's confused. I swap back to Mightyena and Intimidate once more as he hits himself in confusion luckily. Now I swap yet again into Groudon, who can take any move he throws at us, but he hits himself again. Groudon then Flamethrowers in the sun for a little bit of damage, and we tank an Outrage. We Solar Beam once more to bring him lower as an Outrage puts us on 66 HP. I then decide to go for an Earthquake, and with that we do just enough damage to take down Druddigon, beating Alder, but at the cost of our first death of the run, Crobat. RIP. It's time to face the second champion. Iris is the second champion, and the majority of her Pokemon are dragons. Now once again, fire types do not match up well versus dragons, and as Crobat has fallen, we swapped in the only other Pokemon Archie had, a Swellow. We're down to our final 6 now with still many champions to go. Iris's lead is Hydreigon, and it's a big issue really. It has Surf, so we have to swap out Camerupt instantly for Groudon to set up the sun. This boosts the Flamethrower he has too, and Surf still does a quarter to us. We swap to Houndoom as he Flamethrowers, boosting our fire type moves, and then we Flamethrower back for massive damage as we take a Dragon Pulse. One more Flamethrower and her first dragon falls. This brings out Druddigon. A Focus Blast or a Rock move is coming. Our best swap is Mightyena to intimidate Druddigon as he hits a Rock Slide for close to half. We then double into Weezing on the Focus Blast and we tank it nicely. Now we go for a Sludge Bomb for great damage as a sun boosted Flamethrower puts us low. A final Sludge Bomb and we take down 2 of Iris's Pokemon. This brings out Aggron. I swap to Camerupt as he goes for a Double Edge, which does half to us. We then outspeed and take it down with a single Earthquake. This brings out her Lapras, who's a bit of a problem for my whole team. I go into Swellow, who takes a Surf on the swap to half. We then Roost, removing our Flying type and healing us as she Ice Beams and puts us really low. I go for a Roost again, healing some more as a Thunderbolt brings us to 9 HP. I then go for a U-turn, critically hitting, and go into Groudon, who's immune to Thunder. Thanks to the U-turn critical hit, a Solar Beam does just enough damage to take down Lapras, and this is rough. Now is a major threat again, Haxorus. I have nothing to deal with this, especially if it starts Dragon Dancing, it can sweep me. I hit a sun boosted Flamethrower as Haxorus then goes for an Earthquake that critical hits and brings Groudon really low. I can't swap, so I go for a Flamethrower again, and we return the flavor with a critical hit to take him down. That was super lucky. Finally is her Archeops. I go for a Solar Solar Beam, but we don't quite take it out. But we then take an Acrobatics to 8 HP, surviving thanks to his ability to Fetus. We then take down Archeops the next turn with a Solar Beam, beating Iris, but once again by the skin of our teeth. For once, I'm really not feeling confident in this run. Let's move on to the 3DS games in Generation 6. Diantha is the champion of Kalos and who we take on next. Her team's pretty strong and she's got a Mega Gardevoir. Groudon can really put a dent in her team though, but he's also pretty frail considering. We are really starting to struggle now, we just have to keep persevering. Diantha's lead is a fighting flying type Hawlucha, and Camerupt is at a bit of a disadvantage again. However, Hawlucha sets up a Swords Dance turn 1 as we hit a super effective Stone Edge, doing massive damage to her first Pokemon. Hawlucha now flying presses us, crippling our Camerupt as our Flamethrower just about takes him down. Next out is a bulky Dragon Gudra. We swap to Weezing as the Muddy Water or Focus Blast is coming our way, and he does in fact Muddy Water, which still does good damage to us. We then fire off a Sludge Bomb for good damage too before a Dragon Pulse brings us low. I now go for Pain Split, which shares our HP and heals up Weezing and brings Gudra to half as he Dragon Pulses us again to 14 HP. It's time to switch and only Groudon is a viable swap to Gudra currently. As we set up the sun and Gudra hits a Dragon Pulse which Groudon tanks nicely. Groudon then shakes the earth beneath his feet, doing enough damage to take down Gudra with an Earthquake. Third is Aurorus, the Ice Dinosaur. I go for a Solar Beam as it's an Ice and Rock type and we don't take it out, and luckily we dodge a Blizzard or that would have hurt. Diantha full restores as we Solar Beam once more. Diantha just keeps burning full restores here as I go for a Flamethrower, still doing close to half, but now the sun's faded. I forgot it's not permanent in this generation. We Ancient Power, but it's not enough to take down Aurorus, and he Light Screens, raising the team's special defense. Thankfully, Diantha doesn't heal this time, and an Ancient Power brings him down. This brings out Galgeist. With Light Screen, it tanks a Flamethrower from our legendary and hits a hard Seed Bomb in return. A final Flamethrower, and down her Grass type goes. This though just brings out Tyrantrum the T-Rex. All we can do is Earthquake and bring the T-Rex to the red, as he Dragon Claws to put Groudon on a sliver of HP. Diantha goes for a full restore as we just Earthquake once more to take him down with a critical hit. This now brings out Gardevoir, who traces our ability Drought and sets up the sun for us. That's really kind of you, Gardevoir, thanks. We've got to swap though, I can't risk Groudon and I really don't have a good switch into a Moonblast, except Weezing, but he's too low too. I go into Swellow hoping to live in Moonblast, but Mega Gardevoir is just far too strong and our bird falls, putting us now at 2 deaths and losing both of our flying types. I go into Houndoom, who hits a sun boosted Flamethrower to put Gardevoir on below half as a Moonblast brings us super low too. But Houndoom is my favourite Pokemon for a reason. It outspeeds a Mega and takes it down with another attack, beating Diantha but suffering another death to put us at only 5 Pokemon to try and finish this challenge with. And up next is usually an insanely hard one. Hau is the person we fight to become champion here, and he's always one of the most trickiest. His team really does pack a punch. Thankfully, we've got a complete check for his Z move in Houndoom, and Maxie's got an ace up his sleeve. That's right, by giving Groudon a red orb, we get access to Primal Groudon, and I hope this is enough to tear through his team. Hau's lead is an Alolan Raichu, and Camerupt matches up nicely versus him. We take a Psychic, although not very well as we never do, and we deliver a super effective Earthquake to take down his first Pokemon. This brings out a huge threat in Tauros with Intimidate. We swap to Weezing as he goes for an Earthquake, so we neutralise that. Then Weezing gets hit by a Double Edge for massive damage as our Sludge Bomb critical hits to take him down. This is just the luck we need right now. This brings out his Ace Incineroar, and we've got the perfect solution to the incoming Z move. By swapping into Houndoom, and luckily Incineroar does try and go for Inferno Overdrive, Flash Fire kicks in and we absorb it. But it does no Earthquake and we gotta swap again. So into Weezing I go on the Earthquake to neutralise that again. I then double into Mightyena to get off a much needed Intimidate to lower Incineroar's attack as he goes for a Flare Blitz. That still puts a huge dent in us and this is just not looking good. It's time to activate our secret weapon though. We swap into Groudon and then the transformation occurs and Groudon reverts back to its primal form and it has the ability Desolate Land, so now Sun is permanent. But we've also just boosted his Flare Blitz, but we shrug it off like it's nothing. We then hit a massive Earthquake to take down his Fire Starter. This brings out his Ice Crab, but the sun is burning so bright and our fire burns too harshly and he falls to a Flamethrower. Hau's next Pokemon is a Leafeon, but as you can imagine it stands no chance against the might of our Primal Groudon and burns from a Flamethrower too. This leaves just a Noivern left. It hits a Super Fang that always deals half of the HP as we throw rocks at him to bring him low. Hau uses 4, yet 4 full restores on Noivern, completely destroying our Ancient Power PP. But on our last Ancient Power, Groudon gets an almighty stat boost, boosting every single one of his stats by 1 stage. This now allows us to outspeed Noivern and finish him off with a fiery flamethrower, burning the dragon and defeating Hau. We got some really good RNG here to allow us to keep continuing. If we lose another Pokemon, I'm not sure how we would have coped. Let's keep it going with the Switch games. So for Trace, we don't have a full team of Pokemon. Once again, we only have one, which is Weezing. In these games, by maxing out our AVs to 200, we have a really powerful Pokemon. We have to sweep Trace or we fail the challenge. But Weezing's move courage is pretty insane. I do think we have the tools to do it, but we're on a timer of how many hits we can take. The battle starts off with Trace Mega Evolving Pidgeot as Weezing outspeeds and throws Sludge at him, not taking him out, and we take an Air Slash in return. That's not a great start that Pidgeot survived. Trace now burns one of his many full restores and heals up Pidgeot as I just go for a Thunderbolt to take it down. I should have just done that to start with. Second, he sends out Slowbro, a Psychic and Water type. It's bulky, but it can't stand to the electric and falls to a single Thunderbolt. This brings out Rapidash third. Weezing Sludge Bomb brings a Fire Horse low and poisons him, but Rapidash gets off a Flare Blitz for more damage on Weezing before succumbing to his own recoil damage. Fourth is Jolteon. Weezing doesn't take it out again with a Sludge Bomb, and we get hit from a Thunder, bringing us lower, and we get paralyzed. This could get really ugly. Trace now doubles into Marowak as Weezing gets Parahaxed, even worse. Our Sludge Bomb then does not even half to Marowak as his Brick Breaks does a little amount to us too. We Dark Pulse his second turn to put him on 1 HP as a Fire Punch now brings us lower and lower. Thankfully, Trace chooses to let Marowak fall, and we take him down with a Dark Pulse. This brings back out Jolteon, who Trace then heals with a full restore, and you can see who he chooses favourites with, as our Dark Pulse still doesn't do half to him. Jolteon then hits another Thunder, putting Weezing now in the yellow and paralysed, but our Sludge Bomb takes him out. This brings out his last Pokemon, Vileplume. We have access to Flamethrower and it does fantastic damage, just missing out on the knockout as he sets up a Reflect, which is kind of pointless. Trace now burns yet another full restore, but our next Flamethrower rolls higher and we take down Trace, but not convincingly either. It's time to move on to Gala, where this could get really ugly. The champion for Sword and Shield is Leon. His team is really strong with a Gigantamax Charizard. We lose every single one of our Pokemon now, except Groudon and Weezing, and it's not enough to win. But checking Bulbapedia, Maxie did control Kyogre for a little while before it overwhelmed him. So let's bring in Kyogre for a short time too, to try and salvage this run if we can. Leon's lead is his Aegislash, and I lead with Groudon. Our best lead, and I'm only going to use Kyogre sparingly if I have to. So turn 1 I Dynamax Groudon instantly to boost our attack's power. Groudon's Max Flare is just way too powerful now, and we melt the Sword and Shield Pokemon a good start. Second, he sends out Inteleon. Thankfully, Groudon knows Solar Beam, which in return changes to Max Overgrowth. This instantly takes down Inteleon and sets up Grassy Terrain, which will provide healing to my Pokemon, but also to Leon's, which isn't great. He then sends out Mr. Rhyme, the dancing Mr. Mime, and it's weak to us. I go for a Max Rockfall, which actually doesn't take it down as we set up a Sandstorm, and Mr. Rhyme freeze dries Groudon for massive damage, and we get frozen. This is really, really bad. We get healed a little bit, and so does Mr. Rhyme, before our Dynamax turn comes to an end. I'm now in a bad predicament. I gotta stay in as Leon goes for a full restore, and we stay frozen. We both get healed a little bit from Grassy Terrain as he starts taking Sandstorm damage too. Groudon then thankfully falls out and throws rocks at Mr. Rhyme for close to half, but another freeze dry brings us to the red as he takes more Sandstorm damage. Then we both get healed again. I decide to now go for Flamethrower, and luckily this does enough damage to take it out, thanks to a critical hit, but we're only halfway through his team and Groudon is very, very weak. We get a little bit more healing before Grassy Terrain comes to an end. His next Pokemon is Haxorus, and as Groudon has demolished half of Leon's team, it's time to use Kyogre now. We swap into him as we set up the rain, and Haxorus hits a massive outrage, just nearly taking us out. We need to one-shot Haxorus now with an Ice Beam to stand a chance, and thankfully we do due to Kyogre's raw power. Next is Dragapult. It outspeeds Kyogre and hits a Thunderbolt, and Kyogre tanks it on only 16 HP before taking down Dragapult with an Ice Beam, and this leaves him with his last Pokemon and his ace Charizard. But we know from Archie that no matter if Leon Gigantamaxes, Kyogre is just faster than him, and with Drizzle boosting water type attacks even more, A Hydro Pump takes him out, and thanks to having 2 legendaries, we somehow make it past Leon, with 1 more champion left in our way. The last champion is Geeta for Generation 9. She's got some really unique Pokemon too. We lose Kyogre now as he once again becomes too hard for us to control, and we're back to our main team of 5 Pokemon. Can we defeat Geeta? Let's find out. Her lead is Espartha, and Camerupt is back to being our lead. Espartha hits a Lumina Crash for good damage and lowers our special defense as a Flamethrower does big damage back. We can't live another attack now, so we swap straight to Houndoom, whose Dark type makes it immune to her special move. Then Houndoom outspeeds a Psychic Ostrich and takes it down with a super effective Dark Pulse. And actually Houndoom matches up very well versus most of our team, bar 1. Second, she sends out the bulky Ice type Avalugg. It's not bulky especially though, and melts to a single Flamethrower from Houndoom. Third, she chooses King Gambit, and it's Steel type, so Houndoom once again summons the flames and burn the Bishop's evolution to a crisp. This brings out Veluza, the Psychic Fish. We have access to Stab Dark Pulse, which is more than enough to take down the frail Pokemon. Fifth, Geeta has a Go-Go, a Grass type. It actually survives the Flamethrower from Houndoom, but doesn't attack us and just goes for a bulk up, raising his attack and defense. So the following turn, Houndoom takes down Go-Go, practically sweeping Geeta, but this brings out Erase Glamora. We now need to swap, so I go into Groudon, who looks so good this generation. I'm really impressed with his model. Geeta terastallizes Glamora into a pure rock type, making Groudon's Earthquake do massive damage, but not enough for the kill now, as toxic debris flies everywhere and we take an Earth Power. This means a final Earthquake from Groudon, and it's more than enough to take down Glamora, defeating Geeta and every single Pokemon champion as Maxie. Or have we? Atop of the Snowy Mount Silver is a legendary trainer Red, and a champion trainer at that. Pikachu hits an Iron Tail turn 1 for good damage on Camerupt before a single Earthquake takes down Red's ace. Second out is Lapras, and we got to switch. I go into Groudon to set up the Sun as a Brine doesn't do too much to us. We then Solar Beam for fantastic damage as a Blizzard does massive damage to us in return. A final Solar Beam and Lapras falls. This brings out Blastoise, and we can't risk Groudon here, we're so close to the end. I swap to Weezing on the Blizzard and we take it nicely. We then Thunderbolt for big damage as his next Blizzard brings us low. A final Thunderbolt and Blastoise falls. This brings out Charizard, and I swap to Mightyena on the Air Slash that does half to us. I decide to stay in and Thunderfang for half as an Air Slash then leaves us on 1 HP yet again. We can then take down Charizard with a final Thunderfang. This brings out Venusaur, so we swap to Houndoom on the Giga Drain, and a drought boosted Flamethrower is more than enough to melt Venusaur, leaving just a Snorlax left to face. Houndoom goes for Flamethrower, but Thick Fat means it takes it really nicely as he crunches us too. I Flamethrower again, hoping for a burn, but no burn, and we're both now at half. We Flamethrower once more, and Houndoom dodges a Giga Impact that would have ended him. This means Houndoom can Flamethrower Snorlax for the last time, and with that we defeat Red. He disappears and we continue. Team Plasma N and a champion himself, who also has a legendary we need to win to continue. N leads with Reshiram, and Camerupt is our choice here once again. Reshiram hits a Fusion Flare for good damage on us considering we resist it, and an Earthquake does massive damage in return. N4 restores Reshiram, but Camerupt brings him back down. Then Reshiram Hyper Beams Camerupt to 1 HP yet again, and we take it down with an Earthquake. This 1 HP living is insane. Out comes Caracosta, so I swap into Groudon on the Aqua Jet and we set up the Sun. Then with a Solar Beam we bring him down to his Sturdy as he hits a Waterfall. We just Solar Beam again and we take down his Water Turtle. Then it's Vanillux, but a drought boosted Flamethrower melts the Ice Cream Cone in one move too. Klinklang is Steel type, so he just melts to a Flamethrower as well. Out comes Zoroark. Is pretty frail and can't stand the heat, but a Flamethrower does bring him to the red as he retaliates with a Flamethrower too, before Groudon picks up yet another KO. Finally Archeops. We hit a Solar Beam to activate Defeatist, bringing him low, meaning we live in Acrobatics just like Iris, and a final Solar Beam can take him down. And with that we defeat N, and there's just one champion stood in our way. Kieran, the most latest champion to be introduced and one of the hardest. This has a focus on double battles, and honestly I'm surprised we even made it here. This could be the hardest battle I've ever done yet. Kieran leads Politoed and Dragonite with an emphasis on a rain setup, and we lead off with Camerupt and Mightyena. We intimidate them and Politoed sets up the rain. My strategy here is to instantly swap out Mightyena for Groudon. By doing that we remove the rain from the field and we set up the Sun, as Camerupt hits Dragonite, breaking his multi-scale with a Stone Edge, and no rain means Dragonite misses a Hurricane, which is perfect. And now Politoed's Weather Ball is resisted for most of my team as it's Fire type now. Groudon then goes for an Ancient Power on Dragonite, and Camerupt's Stone edge means we take it down without doing any damage to our team, as Politoed now goes for a Psychic on Camerupt, bringing him to below half. Then comes Porygon Z, a massive threat. Porygon Z goes for a Shadow Ball into Camerupt, and that just finishes him off. RIP, you've been a great Pokemon to use, and you made it to the end. Groudon's Flame Boosted Flamethrower still doesn't take out Porygon Z, as Politoed's Psychic doesn't hurt us too much either. And now going to Houndoom, and he doesn't even get a chance to do anything. Politoed goes for a Helping Hand onto Porygon Z, and he goes for a Life Orb, Adaptability, Stab Boosted, Hyper Beam to Nuke our dog, and now we're at 4 deaths and my favourite Pokemon is down. But Groudon can take down Porygon Z now with a Flamethrower. And now going to Weezing as he goes into Incineroar, lowering our team's attack with Intimidate, but that doesn't bother us. Incineroar fakes out Groudon, and Weezing's Thunderbolt does a little bit of damage to Politoed thanks to his Wiccanberry. Groudon flinches, and Politoed goes for an Ice Beam, doing big damage to us. The sun fades, so we can't Solar Beam now either. Politoed survives a Thunderbolt from Weezing, and an Ancient Power does nothing to Incineroar as an Ice Beam now finishes off our legendary Pokemon, taking down Groudon and putting us at 5 deaths, as Incineroar's Flare Blitz nearly takes out Weezing. This is looking like the end. We need to turn this around somehow. Our only hope now is Mightyena and Weezing. Mightyena's Thunderfang takes down Politoed as Weezing goes for a Pain Split with Incineroar, allowing us to go into the green and bringing him to the yellow as he Flare Blitzes Weezing again, but we survive it now. This brings out the Fairy and Dark type Grimmsnarl. Mightyena play roughs Incineroar, and we just miss out on the knockout as Weezing gets off a Pain Split with Grimmsnarl, putting him at nearly full HP and Grimmsnarl low as Incineroar goes for a Flare Blitz onto Mightyena and takes him to below half. Then he takes himself out to recoil damage, but a Spirit Break from Grimmsnarl onto Mightyena takes him out too, putting us at only 1 Pokemon versus Kieran's 2. Can Weezing pull this off? Kieran terastallizes Hydrapple into a pure fighting type as Weezing instantly takes down Grimmsnarl, leaving us with a 1-on-1. If we can live a Fickle Beam, we can Pain Split and maybe win. Hydrapple goes for Fickle Beam and he rolls, going all out. What this means is its base power is increased by a lot, and it's just more than enough to take down Weezing, meaning we wipe for the first time ever, and we couldn't make it past Kieran. So our first wipe for this run and our first fail. We managed to make it right to the end with Weezing really trying to hold on, but a powered up Fickle Beam was just too much for him. I'm sure I maybe could have played Kieran a little bit better, but sometimes you just lose, and that loss was today. It was a really tough challenge this week, and I probably could have just re-challenged him until I won, but my rules are my rules. Death is permanent, and that means we fail this time. We come back stronger next week. If you liked the video, leave a like, subscribe if you're new. As always, I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next one.